Welcome to the Auric Investigators podcast with Vicki McHale, a mutant 4/6 emotional generator with a line 1 motivation, and Lauren Wenzel, a collective 5/1 mental projector. Join us as we deep dive into off the beaten path subjects. But be careful, because we might just make you think, or even better, burst a few outdated bubbles around what you've been led to believe is truth. Agree or disagree, it's okay, because we have nothing to prove. So let's get started. Welcome to the Auric.
Hello, everybody. Welcome and thank you for being here. As you can tell, my technology skills aren't very well, and I'm Vicki McHale, and you are?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Lauren Wenzel, and we are the Auric Sleuths. And we're so happy that you're here as we are having our pre-launch party for our podcast that is launching tomorrow.
Yes, and unfortunately, I was planning on going live on Facebook, but it wouldn't let me go live on Facebook. So now we're recording, and we will just put up the recording. Hello, Shirley Shannon. How are you? And here's all my text messages are coming in going, where are you? Where are you? So hopefully people will show up here, because I told them they could just go onto Facebook. So it's good to see everybody, and please feel free to come onto camera, and please feel free to jump in whenever you would like. We love the chit chat. And so first of all, what we wanted to do was talk a little bit about what the heck is an Auric Sleuth. And basically, it's just a fancy name for two women who are nosy about stuff. So, but from a human design perspective, Lauren is a 5/1, and she is a collective projector, and I'm a 4/6 mutant generator with a line 1. And line 1s are investigators. And what happens when you have that 1 is you investigate the shit out of everything that you're interested in. You go down rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole, and you could never quite get enough information. And so, but the interesting thing about a 1 is if we're not interested in something, it doesn't matter what you do. You could threaten us with prison. You're not going to make us interested in it. Just forget it. And that could have saved my algebra teachers a lot of stress. Probably saved me from about 900 weeks of being grounded. So what do you have to say, Lauren?
Well, I can relate because I'm a 5/1 and I have collective circuitry, and I'm a mental projector. So that's what that means. And with Vicki being a mutant generator, that means that she has individual circuitry. So that's a little farther down as you get to learn your experiment and your channels. And your channels are where your gifts are. It's what you're here to show the world, and the world gets to recognize you in them. And we met last year, right? Or was it this year? I can't remember.
Last year.
Okay.
Yeah,
like the end of last year, through Raquel Reyna's creative coaching certification. She is an amazing human design mentor and teacher that certifies her students in the different levels in human design. And we, having this line 1 in common throughout our charts, we love to investigate, we love to contemplate, we love to get to the bottom of things, which seems like you can never get to the bottom of it. And following our strategy and inner authority, as you'll get to learn, and taking on your experiment, that's really how this podcast came to fruition. And it's just been so exciting. It's so fun. We spend so much time geeking out about talking everything about human design and relating everything to human design and seeing different patterns and stuff. And so it's really our intention to bring this information to people who are ready or interested in trying out their experiment, right? It's not something that's right or wrong or this or that. Like, you just get to experiment. There's not a right way to do something or a wrong way, and then you'll see what's correct for you and what's not. And I'd love to hear anybody in the chat if they have experimented at all with their design, if they're interested, if they're just starting out, really just your relationship with human design.
Oh, Brittany says she's a 5-1, she thinks. And Lucille's a 1-3 emotional. And Brittany says, ew, math. We get that. Well, you know, one of the funny things about being a 1, Lauren said she's like a line 1 collective. So that means whenever she is researching something, she's always looking at, how can I bring this to the collective? How can I bring this information out to the public and teach them about it? And I am a line 1 mutant. So whenever I'm looking at something, I'm looking at, how could I make this better, or how could I change it? And it's so funny because when you start learning about human design and you go back over your life, I would drive my family crazy because, like, my mom would give me a recipe and I'd take the recipe and I'd have to add things to it or change it. Or I could never just leave anything alone. I had to make it better in my eyes. And people were always like, why do you have to always do stuff like this? Why can't you just be happy with the way things, the way they are? And I didn't realize it comes from my soul. That's what I'm here to do, is to change things. So when Lauren and I got together with our energies, I'm all about, how could we take what we're learning and make it better? And then she's the one that brings it out to the collective and says, here's what we can do. So it's pretty interesting. And I know some of you, like, I know Lucille's been on the human design journey, and Amanda's in my class. Shirley, do you know anything about human design? Or
A little bit.
a little bit?
Yes.
Pretty much what I've told you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
What's your type? Do you know your type?
I did know.
She is a 1-3 investigating martyr.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to look at your chart later and go over some things.
Oh, we got 2 investigating martyrs.
Oh, and both emotional, are they both emotional projectors or no?
No, Shirley is a generator.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we're going to be reading those charts.
I
here.
knew number 1 sounded like me.
What's that?
Number 1 did sound like me.
Oh, line 1. Yeah. Yeah, the
Okay.
investigator, I think we have an investigator theme going on right now.
Yeah, we do.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
well, we were going to pull some cards, but you know what? Instead of pulling cards first, why don't we start with the human design readings?
Okay.
People get an idea. And, you know, Lauren, I don't think we've ever read anybody's chart together. This is going to be interesting to see how they are, because a lot of times the way I look at it is I can kind of go back and see the childhood.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of the childhood patterning. Now, it's not always right on, because a lot of people have done a lot of healing and they've worked their way out of things. But that seems to be where my area goes, is, okay, I can see kind of what happened in your childhood that may have gotten you stuck here. So,
Well, let's kind of also go into what people can expect in the podcast.
yeah. Okay.
First.
Okay. Let's talk about
So, because we won't necessarily be reading charts in the podcast unless, like, we're doing like referencing somebody and like a theme or something. But so the episodes that are coming out, we're going to be talking about things like bipolar, ADHD, and then certain centers that are affected and have these sort of like characteristics. And also we're going to talk about dreaming. This is really, really fascinating stuff that I feel like we did 2 episodes on this, but I think it's going to continue to expand because it's connected to so many different things. And Vicky being a mutant, she's like a creative genius. So and this is in her design too, she just takes one thing and another and another, and it's like she's brewing this like magical potion with like everything that she's just noticing and investigating, putting together, and seeing how things can really flow to help each person. But being an individual, it needs to be recognized and like invited to like a group or a tribe. And that's what like I always see in Vicky. I'm like, how are you so freaking like creative and a genius? Like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so, and then we have some guests on our podcast too. So we really go into different avenues in our podcast and talk about different topics and relating it to human design. So we can shift maybe some limiting beliefs or things that are maybe keeping people stuck in a certain way of thinking or relating or feeling, and just offering maybe a different perspective and a tool that can support somebody really knowing who they are and what's actually going on compared to a false narrative.
Yeah. And, you know, for me, it was so interesting because I fell into my spiritual awakening. And then I later learned that I'm also a line 6, and line 6 around 50 years of age, anything in their life that is no longer serving them falls apart. Well, around 50 years of age, my marriage fell apart, my job fell apart, my whole family fell apart. And I was just thinking, what the hell is going on? And then my spiritual gifts started coming in and all of this stuff started happening. And this book, Human Design, dropped on my foot. And it took me 6 years to really pick it up and pay attention. But right off the bat, Spirit said, here's your path. And he even brought my teacher in with 2 weeks of that. And I didn't recognize her until 6 years later when I was ready. But some of the things in the spiritual community that people were teaching and kept talking about are things that you see on TikTok about, you know, ADHD and all of these things. Kept thinking something's not right here, something's not right. And I even, for those of you that have known me for a while, I even stepped away from doing readings and stuff because I was like, something isn't clicking here for me. And then when Human Design came in, it put all of the pieces of the puzzle together. And there's a lot of information in the collective or even in the spiritual world that people are teaching that simply could be absolutely correct for them, but is not correct for everybody. And part of my design as a mutant is when something does not resonate, like I said, it's not going to resonate. And so I had to investigate until I figured out what it was. And one of our first podcasts is, you know, everybody all of a sudden is ADHD or bipolar. Well, if you look at Human Design, for a lot of people, they're being diagnosed as ADHD or bipolar, but it's just a misunderstanding of their circuitry. So these are the types of things that we're looking at to kind of dispel the myths of what is happening. People out there doing dream interpretation and telling you, you know, to follow these dreams and to look all of this stuff up. And that's absolutely incorrect. So these are the types of, we're going to be dispelling popular beliefs, which may make us very, very unpopular. So,
I mean, your mind will be blown though, like really taking on this experiment in different dimensions. I mean, it's opened up so much for me personally. And yeah, with Human Design, with the dreams, with business, even, it's amazing. So who's ready to get their chart read?
let's see. I think we have Lucille up and then Shirley. Those are the only ones that we have received. so
Okay.
far.
So Lucille, are you ready to get a little mini HD reading? You can come on camera if you want, or put it in the chat.
It's so dry looking. I was making
Sorry,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
really messed up right now.
Oh,
That's
you
what
look so
said.
pretty.
Oh, thank you. No, my camera just keeps falling. It's like I'm balanced on like a hamper. So bad. I'm trying to just make it so it doesn't fall. Hi.
Hi, Lucille.
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So bad. Stay.
So for Lucille, let's go into what it means to be a projector really quick. So if you're new to human design and you don't know what a projector is, it is, so you see this square that is at the bottom, right above the brown centered square. So this center right there, that's called the sacral. And so when anybody has that white, like completely white or white and have some lines off of it, that means you're non-energy type. And when you're a projector, you are really here to lead, advise, and guide the energies, which is the energy beings, which is generators and manifesting generators, but also people who recognize you. So with the Lucille being an emotional projector, she also has this, she has a small split. So that means that she is going to take information in from these defined centers at different times and needs a little bit more time to process things unless she's with somebody who can bridge her split. So for example, anybody who has the gate 22, so it's coming off that emotional center that goes to the 12, and then also the 35, which is off the throat. So anybody who has those two gates will help bridge Lucille's split, and just to see how it feels when she's with somebody who has one of those gates, because what happens is when we have these splits, if somebody has one of these gates, but they might not be a correct fit, there might be a story of this person completes me because literally like this person is bridging my split. And so it's just kind of to have like that, that knowing, you know, of like, okay, well, this person has this gate, this is why I'm feeling this way, but I need to follow my inner authority, which is really feeling how this feels. And anybody who has emotional authority is to wait 72 hours when making a big decision and really riding the emotional wave of how things feel and not suppressing what you feel too, like really leaning into the emotions. And Lucille, I feel like having somebody help you like kind of process that too, because you do have a small split, will be really helpful, because your emotional circuitry, which is the 1949, is completely unconscious. So it might not really make sense to you as it's happening. You're going to be more aware of what's coming out of you, because you have that Freak to Genius channel too, the individual channel. So you have one tribal channel and then one individual channel. So your tribe really needs to recognize your individual genius and how you channel and what just comes through you. And these emotions, the 1949 is the most sensitive and emotional channel out of the body graph. And so it's really important to feel that safety in your tribe too.
Yeah. And one of the things I was looking at is because a lot of times you hear people say like they're an empath, but a true empath has a non-colored in emotional center. However, Lucille has this 1949, so it can very much, you're so sensitive to other people's needs and wants that it can almost feel like, or it is empathy in its own way. And then you are open in the spleen center, and the spleen center is all about instincts and fears. So a lot of times I think people that are open in the spleen area, but defined in the emotional, they're actually out picking up fears, thinking they're emotions. And I think the fears can be just as overwhelming as the emotions, but you kind of got both going on here. And then you have a completely open head center. So you have a fear of not knowing enough. And then I forget what the fear is on the 28th. You've got these fears, and then you've got other people's
It's the struggle.
Yes,
Mhm.
struggle. Thank you.
Yeah.
So you have potentially shadows around these gates, and you're also taking in other people's fears. And what can happen is, if you don't realize that they're not your own, or that they're just an illusion, you can get up in your head and stop yourself from doing things. Does this make sense? And then you have, I think it would be kind of a difficult, especially in childhood, because you have the freak or genius channel, and it's completely individual. So that means you are kind of outside of the box. And when you're a projector, and a lot of times projectors are not seen. And what happens with the projector is they walk into a room and their aura goes straight into the G center of others. And without even understanding what's going on, it makes people feel uncomfortable. So in comes Lucille. She's a little bit different, maybe off the beaten path. And then this energy comes in, and it could have created like people not liking her and making up stories around it, or her not being seen. And then when she did speak up, if it wasn't with the right crowd, she could be ridiculed, or she could be ignored, or what have you. Does this make sense, Lucille? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It happened a lot.
Yeah.
A
And
lot.
now I see that as a superpower for you now, because you were very much off, dance to the beat of your own drummer, and it's so attractive. But as a kid growing up, this could really make you put you towards bitterness, or especially with the open G center and the open ego center, make you feel like you weren't good enough, and create a lot of wounding. And then with this open sacral, now it is pretty easy for you to bridge that sacral, but what could happen is you were either go, didn't know when to stop, and you could wear yourself out, or you just couldn't keep up with people. And so that could have really worn you out. So that's what I am seeing on this. But I see you with this freak or genius, and then this 8, it's what is the 8? Self-expression.
It's the talent agent. So it sees the talent in other people.
Yeah.
It's an individual knowing.
Yeah.
She has a lot of individual gates too.
Yeah.
So
She has a lot of individual.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's for her, it's finding her area of genius, because projectors, they're here to find their area of genius and become masterful of it, and then just play in that energy and have fun with it. And at some point, know and trust that the right people are going to recognize you. And once you are recognized and have an invitation to the right group, you become the leader of that group and become very powerful through your voice and God.
Yeah, and the most important, so the third most important thing for a projector is knowing their motivation. So her motivation is guilt. So she might be highly conditioned to be in hope, which is, oh, well, I hope everything works out, and like, really shying away from what she can fix, and being conditioned in false hope. So when she's invited and she's recognized, she gets to lean into, okay, well, this needs to be fixed, and, be motivated. Guilt is the only motivation anybody has that can be motivated by positive guilt. Everything else is not true. So Lucille will really turn on her projector aura type when she is motivated by positive guilt of what needs to be fixed. Like really, like motivating other people, like, hey, when they recognize recognize her and they see her genius of like, okay, like I see this isn't really working out for you. Like, have you thought about this? Or let's like do this and that. And so instead of being like, okay, well, hopefully it works out for you and I'm gonna, and like piecing out or whatever. That's something I really see Lucille like stepping into. And since her incarnation cross, her personality sun, which is the black gate that has 36 and then in the line 1. So that's all about our life purpose and how this sun shines in through us and what we're here to be recognized as. And that's all about transforming that crisis. So it's like you really experience emotions through crisis, but then you go through that transformation from crisis to, I believe it's peace or compassion. It's one of those two. And so you transform that crisis and then it develops into this emotional compassion and knowing of the emotional wave of life. And people will really get to lean on you and feel that comfort, especially through your tribe and then being recognized as your individual self. So that's all I got.
Yeah. And I just want to, because a lot of times, and again, I go back to a lot of the spiritual teachings, as they say, you have to get rid of guilt and you have to get rid of shame. When we're talking out the motivation of guilt, we are not talking about guilt as we understand it. This is
right. Yeah.
Because a person who maybe they had a drinking problem and they ended up in jail or something happened. And what happens is they transform, and then through that guilt and seeing what needs to be fixed in society, they start a program to help other people who are struggling. So it's positive. It's not, I feel guilty, so I have to go around and fix things for everybody.
Right. And Ra, the creator and the founder of human design, in his incarnation cross was shock. So he would use a lot of shocking words to wake people up. And some words, they are shocking. It's like, okay, well, motivated by guilt. What does that mean? That doesn't sound really great. And it's just like, they're here to, they know how to fix certain things and what needs to be meddled with and dealt with.
Yeah. Okay.
So Lucille, we'd love to hear your feedback and any questions.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. You guys are good. Yeah, it's I've been like working through that, like a lot of it, like all of it that really resonates, like especially that 1-3 stuff, like the making like mistakes and then learning from them and just keep going. Like I've done that like a lot of times, constantly transforming and changing and adapting and being fine about it. I can just do that. Like I think easier than most people because I don't know, I just do it. I adapt easily. But yeah, I have been all about like other people, like trying to help them. I just had to focus on myself. Like, I don't know, like I don't even feel like I'm like a person. I feel like I'm supposed to just guide other people like and help them. But I'm trying to work on my spirituality more because that's been the issue with it's hard to tell. I believe in all of it, but I can't, I don't know, feel everything that other people feel. And I'm not at the same level as a lot of people. I'm trying to get there.
So I think a lot of that, because I feel that way sometimes too, and I'm completely mutant and you have a lot of mutant circuitry in there. So I think a lot of times it has to do with our mutant circuitry because we are always looking for kind of that truth and how do you change things. And so I get down on myself a lot of times too. Like when people start talking about, I had this feeling or this happened, I'm like, why don't I have that? And then you could really go into kind of self-flagellation, but I do believe a lot of that has to do with what resonates with us as, kind of that mutant circuitry. And then you have that 1949 on top of it. So you have that mix of tribal and mutant. So you're torn between that, what is right for the tribe, what is best for the tribe, and what is best for me. So you're kind of
Mhm.
torn in that, and that tribal energy is very
Yeah.
much that.
Yeah.
And then the
definitely.
1-3 is all about that person and that person's experience, because it's all the person, their own personal karma. So it's like the projector is made for the other, but then the 1-3, it's really like about them and like their personal karma. So you're gonna have like see that kind of dynamic just go on within your chart.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
But
all my charts are like just like the opposite. Like I'm like,
there,
like
there are so many conflicts within our chart. I look at my
Yeah.
chart and think, oh my gosh, I must have really messed up in another life that I got this chart in this one. Because, like, what were you thinking? And like, I could see you here with this 1949 as you're sensitive. Like, let's just say you have people in your family that might drive you crazy, but
Mhm.
you're sensitive to their needs. But this mutant part of you is like, oh my God, and this 1-3 part, but then you're torn between, oh, I should do it, I should not, I should do it,
Yeah.
I should not. So you're
every day.
war with yourself. And that's part of learning your human design, is to start, when it starts happening, is to go, oh my God, this is part of my design, and kind of
Yeah.
blast yourself and move forward. So
Yeah,
there
I
you
do
go.
that. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, we have another 1-3 investigating martyr. And so a lot of what we said for Lucille is applicable to you too, Shirley, as far as, you know, the 1 and the 3 of you. There's probably a lot of people in your life that have said, what the hell is she thinking? And made you feel guilty for making like what they consider mistakes. But that is your path in this life, is to learn through trial and error. And I have a son that's a 1-3. He's a lot of fun when I didn't want to choke him as a mother growing up. But had I have known, you know, if you know, you do better. But unlike Lucille, you are a generator, and that is 70% of the population. So what happens is like when Lucille goes in and her aura goes straight to the heart of people and kind of could like throw them off a little bit, you come in and you have this warm, enveloping aura. And so people can feel your energy when you come in. They're naturally drawn to you. And I think even more so because you have what is called the 59-6 right here, and you actually have it twice. And that's what's called aura busting energy. So when you walk in, a couple of things can happen. You could become intimate, and I'm not necessarily saying intimate sexually, but it can be. But you can become very intimate with people very quickly and think like they're your best buddies, and then they can turn around and surprise the hell out of you because they weren't necessarily that. Or you could just be talking to somebody and a wife could be upset, or somebody could think like you're onto them and you're just trying to be friendly. And so you have it's aura busting. You actually can change the frequency of the room very easily. You are what is called a triple split, and what that means is these two areas, your ajna and your throat, work together, and then your sacral and your emotions work together, and then your root and your spleen work together, but none of them talk to one another. So on any given day, you can be one way, and another day you could be another day, and another day you could be another day, and you may have had people say to you, "What Shirley's going to show up today?" And that's because that is within your design. So anytime you have a decision to make, you have, first of all, it's emotional authority, and it's learning that emotional wave, because you truly have no truth in the now. And you may have experienced this as you're doing something and somebody says, "Shirley, let's go do this." And you go, "Absolutely, that sounds great." And then 3 days later, when the event comes up, you're like, why the hell did I say I was going to do this? I don't want to do this. It's because an idea is going to sound really great or really horrible based upon your mood at the time. So if you're in a group and you're feeling really good and somebody said, hey, next week, let's go do this, it sounds wonderful, but come next week, you don't want to do it. So your best friend for your emotional authority is learning to play hard to get and say no, or let me think about it, and learning to trust that if the opportunity passes you by, it actually, rejection is kind of protection in your case, but you have to take it a step further because none of these areas are talking to one another. So it's going to take you even longer to make a decision. So people might say to you, can't you just make a freaking decision, or, make a decision and stick with it? One of the things you can do when you have a big decision to make and you're not exactly sure and you're still on the emotional wave is one of the best things for you. And you probably feel better around a lot of people, not knowing why you feel better around a lot of people, is because they bridge these splits. Like somebody that has the gate 27 will come in, and now all of a sudden all of these areas are talking to one another. So you may feel more energetic or better energetically with certain people than you do with others. But one of the best things you can do is when you have a decision to make, or you're just feeling out of sorts, go sit at a Starbucks or someplace where there's a lot of people, but they're not interacting with you, and their energy will come in and bridge those splits and help you to make those larger decisions. So does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. How about your turn, Lauren?
Okay, where do I want to start? So Vicky talked about one of your channels, which is the 59.6. It's the tribal, that they call it mating. It's like intimacy or not. And then we also have the channel of judgment. So that's all about joy and correction. So it's knowing, it's like your judgment and knowing what can be perfected and made better. But it is a projected channel and it's collective. So it really gets to be recognized first and then invited. But you can use this to your advantage as a superpower of like correcting what needs to be corrected within you and not projecting that out. And then other people will be like, oh my gosh, she's really good at, whatever she's doing and like working on herself or whatever, like even your environment, if like you're really like focused on, oh, how can I make this aesthetically better, or whatever your judgment is guiding you to do for yourself, and then you do that and then other people recognize you in that, then you get to bring that superpower into where you're meant to share. And then also you have another collective channel, which is the channel of acceptance, which is the 1762. I have this channel as well. So it's really all about your opinions and then the details. So your opinions and what you think, and just it's seeing how things can be better in the future, and then sharing all the details about it as well. And this is a really profound channel because it's really for the greater good of the collective. And through this magic is like really going into acceptance of what is, and really being in that acceptance. And so you have your two collective channels and then your one tribal. So whatever tribe you're part of, they really get to recognize this part of you that is here to really share your insights and share your intuition of what can be better. And this can come from you being in different environments as well, because triple splits do really well with weaving in and out of different environments. Like you can't stay in one environment or you're going to go crazy. You need to be in different environments, whether that's work, whether that's with your friends. It's like you need a flow through that as well. And with your open crown, this is where you're going to be the most influenced, because you don't have any gates off of it. So you might have a hard time focusing on certain things or knowing what to think about, and amplifying and absorbing everyone else's thoughts around you as well. So it's just noticing, like, if you can release that pressure of like, you don't like certain things, you just don't need to think about, and if they're just floating around and whatever, it's just like you're just witnessing the thoughts, right? And really going into your inner authority, which is emotional, and giving yourself patience and time, since you are a triple split, to really just let them flow through. And so I'm a mental projector. Sometimes I channel, and so whatever comes out, like if it resonates, great, and if it doesn't, that's fine. But if there's a story that you had to speed up, come on, just make a decision, you need to be faster, you can let that story go. Even though you are sacral and you have that defined, and you have the 34, which is the most powerful gate in the whole body graph and the most energy, you're still an emotional being. So it's really honoring the patience you get to give to yourself with your emotions and your wave, and finding those people too who can hold that space for you. And with your gate 46 off your G center, which is the only gate you have off your G, you get to really play around with this love for yourself and your body. And just knowing that in the environments that you go to, it really gets to support that, because you are a chameleon. And that's the superpower of the G center when it's open, is being that chameleon and knowing what to shift, but seeing, does this environment support me or doesn't it?
Yeah. And, Shirley, I don't know if this has been a problem for you throughout your life or not, but you have the 1762, which is very profound. It could also come out as very judgmental, kind of in more of the shadow side, but it can also be extremely profound. The challenge with it, though, is your timing has to be impeccable and your opinion has to be asked for. And so if you just go out and you start giving opinions, what's going to happen is people are going to come after you and try and shut down your voice. And then what happens with this open G and an open ego center, it can really, it can crush you inside. It could really, your self-confidence and how you feel about yourself. And understand it has to do with energetics, because anything off of our throat, no matter how profound it is, it has to be in the right timing. And usually those are projected channels, which means you have to be recognized. And
well, there's two channels that are manifested.
Oh, that's true.
So it doesn't have to be recognized, but they do have to follow their
strategy.
Correct. Yeah. So it's really so for Shirley, it's the waiting to respond, because that's the first thing for a generator, and then following her inner authority, which is emotional.
Yeah. And waiting to respond is one of the hardest things for a generator, because what happens, and especially with you, because you have this very aura busting kind of walk in and people feel it. So what happens with us as generators is people feel our power and our energy, and they assume we're manifestors. They assume we're the just do it people, and we're taught to just go out and do it. Just start a business, do this. That is not what we do. We are here to respond. So what you do as a generator is, if you have an idea, say you want to start a business or do something, you put it out to the universe, and then you go about your business and you do things that you enjoy, and you wait for the synchronicity from the universe. Either you're standing in line at Walmart and you hear somebody go, oh, you should start a podcast, or whatever that is. Then when you hear that synchronicity, or when that synchronicity comes back, now that means it's time to think about it. It can be it can potentially be a great thing. Like people say, oh, I followed my synchronicity. Synchronicity does not mean just go do it. Spirit says to go do it. It means think about it, run it past your emotional authority. And then if it feels good still, then you move forward. but you never just get an idea and then do it. So, how does that sound for you? Do you have any questions or?
I wanted to ask about, it says fear is my motivator. Is that a healthy fear also?
That is a healthy fear. That is knowing what to fear in life, what makes sense to steer clear of. It's also that investigator. And see, you have this 48 right here. You have the 48 twice. And that's the well, that's depth of knowledge. And then you have the 1 here. And fear is also a 1. So when you're interested in something, Shirley, I think you could investigate it until the cows come home. And by the time you're done.
Well, it's also being motivated by fear of the unknown. So it's
Yeah.
like, if you don't know something and it's like intriguing you, it's not like being motivated with like what we associate with fear of like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. It's being motivated by this excites me because I don't know what this is. And then you're going to get distracted by other people's needs. So when you're focusing on what other people need and what needs to be done, you're not being in your true motivation, which is I'm going to explore. I'm going to be motivated by what I don't know. What am I being intrigued by? Because it's a line 1 as well with the motivation. What's
intriguing me? What's drawing me towards this? But it's also a healthy fear. Also, I've investigated it. This does not sound right. It's time to move on to the next thing. It's gathering the information to know, is this right for me or is it not? I had to laugh because we just took a class on the fear motivation or the line 1 motivation. And it said in its shadow self, if you think somebody's lying to you or something's not right, you go into complete investigator mode. And by the time you're done investigating the person, you have them backed into the corner. You not only know what they did, you know what they're thinking about doing, and you know what they may do in the future. And I always thought that that was a talent, but apparently it's a shadow. So. And I see you laughing, so that must resonate. My ex-husband used to say to me, I'd ask him a question, and then after like a few times of me coming back and going, oh yeah, well, he would just say, well, I could tell by the tone you already know, so why don't you tell me? Well, I'd be happy to.
My ex-husband always said I should be a lawyer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the police officer, the investigator. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
other questions, Shirley?
What is the RAX service 3? And it was the other lady, Lucille, had rad Edon.
So this is called the incarnation cross. So it's like your life purpose. And so these gates are the personality sun and earth, and then design sun and earth. So if you Google, like you can Google any of these online, and they'll give you a short description of which
there's 118 of them. So
yeah, which each incarnation cross says, and it's very generic. But as you're going through your experiment and leaning into your design and seeing how your incarnation cross works for you, it's going to pop in a very different way. So for you, and I'm just going to guess. So the personality sun is 8, you're line 18.
I've got it. You want me to read it?
Sure.
Okay. Says you bring the energy that says, get your stuff together. The lead energy here is correction, and this correction is about making life better and more joyful. This is not always going to be an easy message to bring to the world because not everyone is ready for correction. It may feel personal, but realize that it is not. At times, you may need to soften the delivery of your message and make sure your correction is invited by the recipients, or greater conflict will arise. That's what we talked about right there. You are here to shape up this world to make it a better place. So, yeah, go ahead.
You know, that's like very like a generic, you know, just description of each incarnation cross, but But what we went through in just our past level 4 training with the incarnation cross and going into business for human design, we saw that each person's incarnation cross, there was a story behind it, like the depth and like who you were before you really stepped into your design, the shadow and then the gift, and then where you're moving forward now with it. So like, for example, with your gate 18, it could be this knowing of what is correct, but not being recognized to share it. And then so there's this process with what that is like for you, and then stepping into that as you live your design, or really like getting in touch more with your emotions and your waiting, and then just having those right people recognize you. Because one of her channels is in her incarnation cross. So like her life force, one of that the life forces is in her purpose. So it's going to be pretty consistent because they're all off of defined centers. And so we can read the description of the incarnation cross, but it's just going to be so individual for each person that you know, they'll really get to write their story with it.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's your incarnation cross is not something you could read and say, oh, okay, that's what I'm going to be. You have to grow into it. And
Yeah.
for example, mine is the right angle cross of tension. And basically what that means is I provoke people into a new way of thinking. Now, in looking back over my story throughout my life, that channel of provocation, oh, if you upset me or something happened, I knew just where to put the needle to provoke you. But it's transforming that shadow and learning to, I'm kind of like what I'm doing now, you know, just through the podcast or teaching human design, is here's a new way of thinking. Like the provocation is not necessarily a bad provocation. It's a way. And when I look back over my life, and mine is actually subconscious, but when I look back over my life, I can see where that has happened without me even trying it. The minute I try to be that, forget it. Forget it. My foot's in my mouth and somebody's foot is up my backside. So
it's
So
very,
Shirley, does this resonate? Like, what's popping for you right now?
yes, ma'am. I thought the service, I seen it somewhere. I like to help other people. I know that. And I thought that's what that meant. Where
And
did
it
I see
is.
that?
but it's through correction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about making life better for people.
It's really interesting. Is it like, is it science based or?
So that's a great question. The human design was channeled by a man named Ra Uru, and it was this 8-day journey. And human design is a combination of the I Ching, the Kabbalah, and astrology. So it's really looking at your
Quantum physics and codon theory.
Yeah, it's like looking at your DNA blueprint and really seeing what makes you individually unique and how to live as your true self.
Does your chart change?
No, it stays the same.
Okay.
Yeah, your chart never changes. Now, if you marry somebody, I mean, your chart always stays the same, but if you marry somebody or if you have a family, you enter into a penta, you may perform a little bit differently as part of that group, or new energy may come to you, but you are still an individual and work like you work. Did I explain that right, Lauren?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Is this making sense, Shirley?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
It's just so interesting. There's a vast amount of information.
there's such a deep dive here, but the biggest thing is your type, your strategy, and your authority, and you
Okay.
start truly living within that. This is not like I'm an ENTP or I'm a this or I'm a that. This is a way of living. And when you enter the experiment and you go through the great times and the hard times in truly learning to live your energy, your life just starts opening up more and more. And it's not always an easy journey, but you get so many epiphanies and so many things start, coming online for you. And I want to explain each of these gates. 2,800 years ago, the first emperor of China, through reading turtle shells and the placement of the planets, came up with the I Ching. And within the I Ching, there were 64 hexagrams. And each of these hexagrams had a different personality, a personality archetype attached to it. And then in 9th century BC, Confucius wrote the Book of Changes, which explained the personality types of each of these gates. In 1965, DNA was finally decoded, and there's 64 codons within DNA, and each DNA codon has a different personality archetype. In 1971, a gentleman recognized that the I Ching from 2,800 years ago completely overlays DNA codon theory, and the personalities and everything is the same. So it is the merging of both science and the occult in saying they're one and the same. It's we're all one. And that just blows me away. And that's what human design is they took the I Ching and the DNA, and they took the science and they took the occult and put it all together and gave us our design and a way to recognize who we are and to live within that energy. Does that make sense?
That's amazing.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, Amanda, are you still here? I know you said you would like me to pull up your chart. I will try if you're still here. I see your face is still here. Okay. Do we have time? We have time for me to try and pull up this chart?
Mhm.
Okay, let me see how I can do this. Share screen, let me see.
If anybody has any questions too, you please put it in the chat, or any like ahas or epiphanies, or we want to hear from you.
I think I could do it this way because Amanda's a member of my group. So let's see.
I do have a quick question as far as the environment on here.
Mhm.
Is that like where we like feel most at home, where we come up with our ideas and like can be our like true selves? Or 'cause
So
mine's in the
environment.
kitchen, so I'm like,
Mhm.
that's where I do like feel like I have the best, conversations, and where I'm like truly let all guards down. So
Yeah,
I was just curious if-
absolutely. Your environment is so important. It's part of the primary health system when we get into the 4 radical transformations. So that's like later down the line as you're really
Okay.
living your design and your experiment. But I hear this all the time with people, especially with kitchens. They're like, yes, I love being in the kitchen. I love making food, or I like talking in the kitchen, or whatever it is. The kitchen is really important for people who have this because it's truly a place of transformation. Like,
Okay.
so not only like being in the kitchen, but also just how they are in general. I've kind of seen this just across the board with people who are into human design and have kitchens, but then even people who not so much, like, yeah. So kitchens, it's all about their network too, as well, because it's a line 4
Oh.
theme.
And
Okay.
I'm kitchens, and like when I bought a house, the kitchen was always the most important place. When I entertained, it was always around the kitchen, but it's also places like living in a place where there's a lot of alchemy going on. Like, Lauren said, Vicky's always taken this, and this and stirring it together. It's taking different aspects, like you with your jewelry. That is definitely the kitchens are an alchemy, because you're taking you know, like stones and metal, and you're
Right.
alchemizing them into something else. Now the transference of kitchen is shores. And let me tell you, 2 years ago, I moved to the lake and I'm freaking miserable. So it was great for a while, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. But I realized I'm bored here. It's too, you know, it's too off the beaten path for me. So I'm having to move to someplace. Okay.
Sorry.
So let's see. Amanda is a 1-3 manifestor.
It's not showing up.
Oh, it's not?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. Let's,
So try to reshare it.
okay.
I'm a 4/6 emotional generator. That
Oh,
might
the-
have been the old one.
Oh, I picked up the wrong one. Okay. Let's see. No, that's not gonna work. Okay. Sharing has stopped. I'm trying to see if there's a way that I can pull this up. Okay, so
There it is.
can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the you're on a website.
Okay, good. Okay. I'll just go to genetic matrix real quick and pull up her chart there, because know I have the right one there. Do, 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 do. Okay. Your computer never seems slow until you're trying to do something with it, right?
Right.
Okay, Amanda. Here we go, Amanda. Okay, can you see Amanda?
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Amanda is a 4/6 emotional generator. And the first thing I noticed, she is a triple split. So she has her head and her ajna. She has really great ideas and she knows how to bring them to fruition. She knows how to put ideas together. Those two areas talk to each other. Her spleen and her ego are together, work together, and then her sacral, her root, and her emotions. But these three don't talk to these two, and these two don't talk to anything the neck. So that means you could show up as 3 different people on 3 different days, Amanda, and you can have some really good ideas, but you're maybe not quite sure how you feel about those ideas, or you can come up with ideas and you know, your emotional authority, how you feel about this is very important, but there can be a disconnect between the two. Does that make sense?
So I noticed that she has all 3 gates coming off her ajna to her crown, but she just has one channel, the abstraction channel, which I have. So I can only imagine like the amplification of just wanting to know, like that, like head pressure, like, oh my God, I have to figure everything out and have all the answers and all the details. It's just, but then you have this abstraction, which is the only emotional thinking channel in the body graph. And it's this long process of confusion and emotional thinking, and then just like this slow churning until you find the epiphany, and then it clicks, and then you have that mental awareness. So I feel like this one for you is probably the most impactful right now. Like maybe what you're experiencing, and then having that completely open G center. This is like your identity. And so you just take in everybody's identity and everybody's any environment that you're in. But this is a superpower because this is all about self-love and the connection to the divine and direction. And it's like really being open to what the universe wants to put in front of you. But it also gets to feel good and really just like feeling into the natural rhythms of your emotions and playing with these different aspects of yourself.
Yeah. And then it's funny, Amanda, because I'm looking here and you've got the channel 4426 and you have the full channel of it. And basically you're a marketing and sales genius. If you could get out of your head and formulate the plan, there's a lot of success or not, as with anything. But if you could get out of your head, get those bridges split or what have you, you can come up with some great ideas and really market your business and be able to sell. You are not an empath, but you also have that 1949. So you are extremely sensitive to other people's kind of needs. You're also extremely intuitive, which I think you block a lot of time.
And that's in her Pluto. So that's going to be her greatest transformation throughout her life, is really trusting her psychicness and her intuition.
Yeah. And I know this because before I even did human design, I recognized it in her and like kind of forced her into a class and she was so intuitive and she was like, yeah, no, this isn't for me. But she was always just right on.
And then one of her superpowers too with that undefined throat is she's going to be able to tap into and communicate with many different people. And the voice and whatever gets to be expressed will just come out naturally, instead of having like one set of way of communicating and being known for like that voice, is being able and have that adaptability and reaching many different people.
Yeah. Yeah, this 12 off of the throat, that's about knowing when to talk and knowing when not to. This is actually a manifested channel, but you don't have the full channel. But the shadow side of it could be when you're in the mood to do something or you're in the mood to talk about something, you could just be the belle of the ball and light up the room. But when you're not in the mood, forget it. Get the hell away from me type deal. And if people force you into doing something, you may make them pay for it. So let's see. And then you have this 59-6, which is the aura busting, which we talked about with Shirley Shannon, is you can become very intimate with people very quickly and think that they're better friends than what they actually turn out to be. Or you could simply be talking to somebody's husband or wife and they think like you're coming on to them or something and you just were having a conversation. And let's see.
Yeah, and the gift with this channel is, since it's tribal, really getting in, like penetrating. Let's say if somebody's having like a problem with their family and they're confiding and opening up to you, and you can penetrate into this person and their family and opening up a new perspective. It really is such a gift, and it shifts because this person feels safe with you and you have this natural ability to see things and penetrate that. And because I have a friend, she has this, and I see that gift in her. I mean, it's very emotional, it's penetrating, and it can shift and really help somebody, especially when they're motivated by, because you have hope motivation. So like hope and innocence are a little bit similar. So hope is really knowing what can change and what can't. And it's really being motivated by the less that you do. And you're going to be distracted by guilt, which is, I need to fix this. I feel guilty about not doing anything. Oh my gosh, I need to, and I see Amanda covering.
Yeah, I was just going to talk on that. That's so funny that you said that.
Yeah, and I have hope motivation too. So this has been one of my biggest things to decondition from, because I'm a 5-1. So in human design, we have inner conundrums. So 5-1 is all about being a problem solver and the fixer, and then hope motivation is doing nothing. So that's going to be an inner conundrum for me, and how I get to figure out that kind of balance. But with hope motivation, it's something that is not been really modeled in our society, but it is here to really step into, because we let the universe and God, whatever source, whatever you resonate with, swoop in through us and do more by us doing the least. Why are you laughing, Vicky?
Lucille's giving us this show.
I know, I've been watching too. I'm like, okay, you do your thing, girl.
It's that freak to genius.
She's
I
like,
just
what?
thought it was funny because, well, it was so funny because she was doing that when you were talking about her motivation of guilt. What I was looking at was this 43 off of her defined ajna. So Amanda could come up with these really cool ideas, but she doesn't know how to put it into words and to vocalize it so that people really understand her vision. And then she has this individual line 3, which is
All about
difficulty
change.
at the beginning. It's all about change and difficulty at the beginning. So if she can even get that concept through, it's
Right.
just like things are until it gets ordered and things are going smoothly, it's going to struggle. And these are very creative channels, but she's got that 1949, which is very sensitive. So if she's doing something that is for Amanda and what Amanda wants to do, if her family thinks like she's taking away their time, or, you know, taking away time for them or what have you, that can go right into that guilt motivation. And
Well, and then she
offers
has
help in doing
3 channels that are tribal. So
yeah,
very tribal, and then 1 collective. So she is really going to be like, this is how it is in our tribe. Like, we have to do it this way. And then sort of like also a little bit of pull to share, like, oh, my collective like expression, I need to share this, but it's like, no, like, this is my group, this is my tribe, like, and this is how I just see tribal energy work, who are more predominantly in the tribe. So it's good to like kind of just have this awareness of like, okay, well, this is just how I'm designed. But the gift with the tribe is really bringing in, like, sharing more of like your emotional thought process and what you have learned and what has like been a great epiphany for you, and who you feel good with in your tribe. Because you're a 4-6, so your karma is always going to be with other people.
yeah. And I could see where Amanda could be very torn at times between
Right.
doing what is best for Amanda and doing what is best for the tribe, or what the tribe wants, because she also has this she's got almost the whole defense channel, and
Yeah.
7 is all about responsibility and the
And
nourishment
nurturing, yeah.
tribe. But there's also the individual aspects of her that says like, when is it my turn, or when
Right. And then with her right angle cross, that is about her too, and how she shows up in her life purpose for other people to see as well. So it's just really understanding, contemplating these different nuances and noticing how they kind of pop in your everyday. So Amanda, we'd love to hear from you and your
I like feel like I'm blushing because I'm like, there's so much stuff that just hit me. I didn't realize that I mean, I know it said tribal, but then when you guys started talking, I am so like mama bear, but I've been like that since I was a kid. Anytime my cousins would bring their girlfriends, I'm like, nope, she's not in. Like, she's not in. Move on. My brothers, like, it's been with everybody. And so I get that. I was reading about like the surrender and abstract, that those ones kind of hit home because I try to control my environments because I scare everything that's unknown. So then I try to get as much information as I possibly can so I can make a better decision about whatever. But the abstract, that is that internal conflict, right? Between, so that really, I mean, there's just so much you guys hit on. I'm going to be re-listening to this because I feel like I was in shock, and so I'm like,
Well, and look at this, you have 6 abstract gates and you have 4 logic. So you are caught between logic and abstract.
yeah,
Kind of going back and forth between left brain and right brain. So that is something for you to, a challenge that you're going to have. And you do have collective, or you do have tribal and let's see, tribal, collective. So you have tribal and collective channels. You don't have any individual channels, but
okay,
you have 8 individual gates. So remember I said you have that push-pull between the tribe and society and what it is that Amanda wants. And this is going to be a huge learning to find balance within that.
yes.
So,
And I love that you guys use superpowers, because as what I would normally be like, no, like that's a negative thing. That's something to be scared of. But now, and I've actually just been talking with my husband, like I need to create these, view them as a challenge. Like I'm challenging myself because I'm a very competitive person. And I feel like if I make it almost like a game, and with this experience, and doing these, yeah, I'm just sorry. I'm just drawing up like just so much information.
there
Yeah,
is
because
so
I
much
love
information.
I love creating jewelry, and I actually do it in my dining room off of my kitchen, so it's all one open thing. But I keep running into do I go big? No, I don't want to go big, because if I go big, then it's no longer going to be fun. I just want it to be fun and like be able to release my creativity. But at the same time, it's, I'm in that like I created that conflict to like stop myself from actually seeing how far it could actually go. So I'm like running into my kids are getting older, my little one's going to be graduating. The youngest is going to be going into high school. And I'm like, okay, now it's like me time. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm just,
So if you kind of go in and out of at least 3 different environments. So if you have, like your jewelry and then maybe like 2 other things that you're interested in, you'll see how it kind of flows together, because you
Okay.
can't be limited by one thing, because the
yeah,
triple split, that doesn't support the triple split. So if you had your jewelry and then something else and then maybe something else as well, then it would flow, and then that could maybe turn on more of like, okay, well, I want to share this, or I want to like bring this, like, I don't know if like creating like an Etsy account or something would be a possibility for you. And then also seeing if you wanted to like bring people in, because
yeah,
you do have a really strong WA channel. So that's like a large corporation. And then you also have the entrepreneur channel as well. So you have the energy, you're an energy type. So whatever you do and choose in multiple things, you're going to be really satisfied in.
okay. So I
And-
need to change the way, because I tend to hyper focus on something
Mhm.
for like 3 months straight. That's all I do. That's all I like. And then I'm like, okay, I need a break. And then I do not like, I need like a complete break. And I don't know. It's like I just hyper focus and wear myself out. And then I'm like, oh, so I need to balance. I need to find balance.
Yeah, if you
And
could find
spread
3
it out.
different environments that feel really good for you, You'll see how
Okay.
you kind of weave in between all of those three.
And Amanda, I do know that, I know you personally, so I know you really don't like to go out. But it's one of
I
the,
know.
it's one
You've
of the
been in
best
my
things-
head.
Yeah, it's one of the best things that you could do. And even if it means like having your husband take you to a coffee shop and sitting at another table, because what happens is because you are such a homebody, you are around the same energy all the time. And I don't even know, I don't remember if they bridge your splits or not. But when you have a triple split and you're around the same energy all the time, well, one, it gets annoying and you could lash out, or two, it
Mhm.
keeps you in the same pattern and it doesn't open you up. So even if it's, honey, take me to the Starbucks and go sit across the room or whatever it is, just to get those other energies coming in, I think those ideas are gonna really pop for you, because what's happening right now is you have the ideas. I feel like you have the ideas. You don't necessarily know how to vocalize what it is that you're thinking, but you are here to make decisions based upon your emotional wave and how it feels to you. And you have a large disconnect between here and kind of the brain area. And so for me, when you are defined like this, it's how do I feel about these ideas?
Yeah.
And Lauren, maybe you could speak to that, because you're the brainosaurus here. I'm the airhead.
Well, what do you mean?
Well, because she is so defined here, like I feel like she has like really good ideas that
So
she-
it's all about communicating her inspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really communicating her ideas, her inspiration, her beliefs.
But knowing
And
if they feel good for her is where I think she has a disconnect, because she makes
yeah,
those-
so it's being in, so it's all about being in the right environment. If
Yeah.
there's a lot of people too, I think that can really turn on and help bridge those splits. And then especially because I don't know why this is popping out, but so her view is power. So really keeping track, and this is kind of linking to her tribal circuitry of like, all right, who's the best at this? Like keeping score, that's not a bad thing. It's like, who's better and doing good at this and that, and like taking score and just, being in that, seeing that view. And then you get distracted by your own personal view. Oh, well, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I think. This is my experience. When you get to see who has the power and who doesn't, like who's winning and who's losing. And it's not like a judgment. It's just, that's how you view life. And then you're going to get distracted by your own personal experience. But we need both, because it's like a pendulum. And so the mind will be like, okay, I'm viewing this, I'm taking a person, I need to go back to power. And then the same thing with your motivation of like, okay, I'm going to hope for the best. I know it can change. I know it can't. And then, oh, I'm getting distracted by what needs to be fixed and being motivated by guilt. So there can be a lot of inner conundrums with these, because power sounds very more like, it doesn't really like coincide with hope, but you get to figure out what that means for you. Does that make sense?
And then I'm going to bring up one more thing and then we'll move on here, but you are a 4-6. So that means your manifestations come through your network.
Mhm.
So it doesn't necessarily mean you need a big network, but you need a strong network. And with your transference being guilt, a lot of times what happens is we are networkers. So when you meet somebody, there is a natural penchant to look at them and say, how do they fit into my network? How do they fit into my life? Not that you're going to take advantage of them. There's an equal exchange of energy. But if you don't see somebody fitting into your world kind of within an opportunity aspect, you're not necessarily going to be attracted to them. And then I know, at least for me, guilt comes in, because it's like, oh, look at you being judgy. It's not necessarily being judgy. It's just that your energy is going towards that opportunity that you two could bring to each other. So if you fill up your life with a lot of people that there's no room for opportunity, then it's going to be difficult for you to manifest. But with this 2644, if you have a strong network and you have a good foundation, then that's going to really help you explode if that's what you want.
And then also, if you know you're not a fan of going out too much, I mean, virtual networking is a really big thing too. Like the online space is like really booming. So that's a good way to really connect with people. And like, I don't know about if you're in other Facebook groups or just attending like live events and stuff and just having those opportunities. I see that also being a possibility.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we were going to read some cards, but I think we've gone a little bit long, but maybe if you want to, Lauren, we can go, you know, on the actual page and read some cards. And if people want to come on, whatever you feel most comfortable with at this point. I know there's some people that haven't gotten readings. So if you would like us to pull up your chart or at least give you a card, we're happy to do that. Did that make sense?
Do you mean like going live on the Facebook page
Yeah, I was
and
thinking,
doing it? Okay.
yeah, we could pull cards for people here that have waited this long and been so wonderful. Or if they're not in the mood for a card, we could just go live on the page. It's up to you, whatever. You know, Brittany, you've been here a while. Have you had your chart read before? Or?
I've had Lauren read it and tell me certain things.
Okay. Is there anything you would like clarified?
Lauren, you mentioned something about struggle
Yeah, she has a
with
channel of struggle.
money. And I'm like, is there an expiration date on that? Because I want some abundance right now.
So I'm gonna pull up your chart and I'm just gonna look at it through my phone.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll just give you guys a little bit of a background on Britt. She is a 5/1 splenic projector with a triple split. And one of her channels is the channel of struggle. So that's an individual channel. And when we have individual channels, sometimes the circuitry will be like the stuck feeling, right? So you're stuck, you're stuck, you're stuck, you're stuck, you're stuck. Oh my gosh, what the F is going on? You know, and then there's this melancholy and then there's this transformation, and that's how the pulse of the individual channel works. And so Britt has 2 individual channels and then 1 collective channel. So she has the channel of struggle, she has the channel of inspiration, and then she has the channel of logic. So with the and then she has the gate 14, which has to do with resources. So it could be resources or not. So Britt, your resources and the gate 14 is in your south node. So so the first 40 or so years were in our south node. And so just looking at this, like your biggest transformation is going to be through your relationship with money and resources. And then as you get to like age 40-ish, you're really going to lean into the talent and your self-expression and your communication and really seeing the talent in other people. And so with the channel of struggle, it's not necessarily like, I mean, it could be, because this channel can be like just like a struggling with everything, or just like, you know, having to struggle through so many different things. And the superpower with this channel is knowing what is worth the struggle and what is not. So then you can really inspire other people as to like, okay, this is what you're fighting, and not necessarily like fighting as like a negative word, but it's like this self-empowerment of like, okay, this is what is worth like really like laying into, and like knowing that this is worth it, and then what's not worth it and what you can let go of. Does that make sense?
Yeah. When you said like me going towards the age of 40, because I'm gonna be 40 in like a year and a half. And like I've thought to myself, like, how nice would it be to be my own boss by that age and have like what I call, or what I've heard, a laptop lifestyle, and go work wherever I want to work and go travel whenever I want to. And I'm like, okay, I really want to do that because I'm over a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah, and so with being a triple split, being in like what we're talking about with the other triple splits is like different environments too. So how you make money, you're gonna make it in like multiple different ways. So like having your own podcast, like pet sitting, babysitting, whatever brings you like what feels successful for you, and you feel that joy, because as a projector, it's gonna be different for us. So it's like where you feel light, where you feel joyful, where you feel recognized. That's where you get to have those resources come into you, and then you being recognized for your gifts in that as well. So how you like communicate, like what makes logical sense to you. And like logic is always in human design, it always go through doubt. So it's not self-doubt, it's just what we're challenging these ideas. So then it can be brought to the collective of like, okay, like I tested this and this is what is needed for the future with a logical sense.
Okay.
One of the things is knowing that you have that channel of struggle, is really working with your limited beliefs around money or work or what have you. And so that when they pop up, you could say, oh, I see you. That's my channel of struggle. And working past that, but just knowing it's always going to be there. But if you bring awareness around, and that's the beauty of human design, now that you know you have that, it's working to recognize and say, oh, no, I don't have to play that game.
Because the gift with the struggle is it turns into victory. So it's the pulse, it's the melancholy, it's the waiting, it's feeling that stuck, because we all experience, no matter what our human design is, we all experience the different themes and the gates depending on the transits. So if somebody doesn't have the gate of struggle, it could still be magnified and amplified in our charts. So you have this, and you can go through this deconditioning within your chart, and knowing, like, you know, through this struggle, through this intuitive knowing, because you're splenic, right? So, okay, my spleen is saying like, yes, like I get to lean into this struggle, because through this, then there is the transformation, and then there's the victory. And then if your spleen and your intuition is saying, no, this is not worth the struggle, then you can let it go.
Oh, and another thing that you can do is, I don't know, my guides, you could talk to your guides and say, you know what, when I am struggling unnecessarily, or when I'm in my head, whatever it is that you're working on, give me a sign, bring me an alarm or what have you. And they will do that. It's probably already happening. And a lot of times that you don't know it, you'll be in your head or something, and all of a sudden a Amber Alert comes on, or you hear a really loud noise or what have you. I strongly believe that that is our human design guide saying, hey, pay attention in this moment. So if you can do that through intention to say, I want to understand my struggle, give me a sign when it happens. And then all of a sudden you're in your worries and this and that, and an alarm starts happening or something happens, you could say, oh, here it is. What do I need to look at? Like, your guides will talk to you.
Yeah, and when you guys were talking about, or Lauren's talked to me about being a projector and being invited to share what I'm thinking, I find the same too, because I think you said I have the fight in me.
The 30.
Like, yeah, like I'll have some people like give me input like, oh, I can't believe you're doing that network marketing business. And I'm thinking like, well, I welcome all sources of income. And if you want to pay my bills, you're more than welcome to, but I am choosing to do this. So
Is she a 4-6?
No, she's a 5-1.
A 5-1? Okay. Okay. I was gonna say, because 4-6 network marketing was made for that. Doesn't necessarily wasn't made for other people, but for 4-6.
Yeah, and as a 5-1, you are here to be a teacher too.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, that's been coming in.
Yeah, and it's like through those different environments, that's the gift of like the triple split, is you don't have to, it's not just one environment, it's different ways of like, you know, as you said, welcoming different sources of income in different ways.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Any last things before we say goodbye? And thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you guys. We're so excited to launch our podcast that goes live tomorrow. So check it out. It's going to be on YouTube and Spotify. And if you haven't, please join our Facebook page and we'll keep everything updated. Yes, Britt?
Oh, I wanted to ask, how often do you plan to put out each podcast episode? Or is
We are
that
Now,
yes?
we're launching 3 tomorrow. And then we're going to launch 1 per week moving forward.
Nice.
And then twice a week, because we're really kind of deep diving some pretty interesting stuff. So twice a month. I forget what we said, the first, no, the second. No, the
It's either
first,
the first or third or second
Thursday.
or fourth of Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday of the month. We're going to go live in our Facebook group to answer any questions, because we're really going to be talking about some off the wall stuff.
Yeah,
So-
and it just helps, like, I know for our personal journeys when we were in class and like really going through our deconditioning and our experiment, like just sharing and processing all these different things and asking questions. I mean, it's like therapy, it's catharsis, it helps heal, it helps us see who we truly are. And that's what we want to give everybody. My collectiveness is just like everybody gets to experience this, right? Everybody gets to have this and have the resources. Like, I don't care if somebody doesn't have the financial resources right now, they can find it in other ways. And if somebody wants to invest in themselves, great. If they're working towards that, like, that's great too. Like, we have multiple ways to have people really have this intel for them where they're at.
Yeah. I think getting the intel out there, especially with the way our world is changing right now, it's imperative that people start learning how to listen to their intuition, because as our society gets more and more crazy and more businesses close and things happen, it's extremely important. So.
And as we get closer to 2027 with just the breakdowns and the falling off of the old, we really need these safe, supportive communities to lean on, and just and it's probably just my collectiveness talking. It's like this connection and togetherness, because the old survival and aloneness and independence, that doesn't work. And I think that more people are realizing, like, I'm tired. I don't want to survive this way. I don't want to live this way. How can we make things easier? And as a projector, we're always about what's easier, what's faster, what's more efficient. And so I know that's why I'm here. And that's what we get to experience together.
I'm a mutant. It's all about me.
Not according to your 4-6.
I know, darn it. It would be so much easier. Okay, people, thank you so much. It was lovely to be able to get to know you better and see you from the inside out. So we hope you will listen to our podcast, and we thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So
Thank
much for
you.
listening. And remember, we absolutely love your feedback. So check out those links below and reach out with your insight, feedback, and even your ideas. And until next time, remember.
And Vicky created this. She's amazing, creative mutant. Thank you, Vicky.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.